The Regina Bypass Project is one of the biggest infrastructure projects that Saskatchewan has ever seen. It has also become one of the most contentious.
Is that how you guys work your system? If you just bulldoze through people's lives? Well, that's what you're doing here. You're bulldozing through our life.
Planned to be finished in the fall of 2019, supporters argue that it will relieve congestion while making travel safer for everybody.
We will continue that investment to make sure that the roads in this province are as safe as possible for the people driving them every day.
But those who are opposed say there's been a lack of transparency surrounding the project, from favoritism in regards to land deals.
We didn't get a fair market value, and that's what's really making us angry.
To the lack of consideration of an alternative route.
Do we have to be afraid in this country of the government coming after us because we stand up and speak our mind?
Tonight, on A Road Divided, we take an in-depth look at this project with 4 unique stories, investigating questions about the current route and controversial P3 funding model, as well as the land deals, where there are winners and losers.
How can I replace it when land is going for 100,000 and the government's only giving me 20?
Well, I'm basically losing everything.
We begin with the issue of traffic safety along the Trans-Canada Highway east of Regina, where a heated debate about installing traffic signals has become political.
My older brother passed away in 2010 from the car accident right outside Belgoni Diner. He went into a coma for 10 days, and then he passed away on his classmate's graduation.
Brian Swansea's brother is one of 12 people killed on Highway 1 since 2005. Matt Watson was a student at Greenall High School in Balgony, which has been at the heart of those most affected. We will bring you the voices of those who have lost and those who are still fighting for change along this corridor of carnage.
I tried to run away from my mom. I didn't want to know, didn't believe it was true, because I already thought it was true. Because my one brother came home at lunch saying there was a car accident at the diner. And just before that, my brother's friends were calling my house asking for my parents' phone number. So I just put the 2 pieces together and went to school, and I was just waiting for my mom to come to school to pick me up, and then there she was. And I didn't want it to be true. And people were getting to me saying, Brian, it wasn't your brother, it wasn't your brother. That 45 minutes I was in school for probably felt like the whole afternoon for me. Just waiting for my mom just to show up to tell me about it.
Although bypass construction is underway and interchanges at these high-risk intersections are in the works, some residents are demanding immediate action.
For Emerald Park residents, John and Ann Panther, traffic signals are the best interim solution to avoid further deadly collisions until the completion of the bypass in the fall of 2019.
We're staunch advocates for the overpasses. We want that to happen. But when we got involved, it was because the overpasses were off in the future. And we said, in the meantime, you've got to do something on a temporary basis to try to alleviate the problems that we've got here. Just intuitively, we said, how about traffic signals? The available evidence, the statistics, in particular the American Highway Safety Manual clearly shows that in these scenarios, while rear-end collisions might go up in part, left turn collisions would go down significantly, and the overall number of collisions would be reduced by 44%. And you know, the irritating aspect of this is it was the provincial government that provided us with those statistics. So they knew.
While considering these statistics in its decision not to install traffic signals, the Saskatchewan government cited a 58% increase in rear-end collisions, but they have failed to cite a decrease in other collision types. Dr. Michelle Bredard is a director at the Center for Research on Safe Driving in Thunder Bay, and he says the selective use of the statistic is short-sighted.
When you look at that particular table, what you find is that, again, the overall all types is still lower than before the addition of a traffic signal. So, yeah, there will be more rear-end collisions. That's not entirely surprising because of the type of thing, and again, our winters and everything. You'll have a lot of, small collision, but again, those collisions are less likely to be, they won't be as severe as a right-angle collision. And again, the overall effect is still a reduction of 44% according to that table. So there's a perceived benefit in terms of having a signal.
Even though reduced speed limits and photo radar cameras have been implemented, severe collisions are still a concern, and the situation is now political.
Coming from the Ministry of Highways, safety is their number one priority. There's a lot of accidents on that road, and if there is anything that government can do to make our roads safer, I'd be in favor of that.
We also have a government that's dismissed and delayed meaningful actions for those dealing with the very dangerous Highway 1 corridor that have called for very common sense measures and solutions. And a government, quite frankly, with its bypass and the boondoggle they've created and the way they've gone at it have actually delayed meaningful action. We should have, quite frankly, had overpasses operational a long time ago.
Once the bypass is complete, safety issues will not go away. The diverging diamond-style interchange planned for the pilot-built access intersection has never been built in Canada. This interchange forces vehicles to drive on the left side of the road, making the visibility of road lines crucial for safety. The government has not yet indicated how it will maintain the visibility of those traffic lines in Saskatchewan's winter conditions. For Stuart Hall, a Greenhall High School student and collision survivor, the provincial government's temporary solutions are not acceptable.
So on December 5th, 2013 at 12:27 p.m., me and three of my closest friends were on our way for Dairy Queen in White City, and while crossing the highway, we were T-boned by a semi. It was traumatizing because in the few minutes before the crash, we were all happy, thinking nothing bad's gonna happen, nothing will happen to us. And then the moment of turning and seeing the grill of an international semi feet away from you, knowing that it's not gonna stop in time, hearing two of your best friends screaming, and then as you hear the crunch and crippling of steel, hearing the screaming stop from your one friend that was behind you, and seeing shatters of glass flying in front of you, and the windshield in front of you shattered from your other friend that was beside you at the time, and just seeing everything covered in blood. And when you stop, a cab of a truck being filled with smoke and exhaust and not knowing where it's coming from, and turning behind you to see, instead of your best friend, blood and crumpled steel, not knowing where she was, it's enough to destroy you. And then looking out and seeing people running towards you, and when you finally get out of the truck, hearing people saying that they thought you were dead, it's enough to destroy your life and change your life in ways that aren't imaginable.
After numerous emails, phone calls, and a visit to the communications office for the Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure, they refused to answer our questions about traffic signals and the diverging diamond interchange. As debates unfold regarding the safety along Highway 1 corridors, the deadly collisions will likely continue along with the controversy.
And if lucky to be elected again on April 4th, we will continue that investment to make sure that the roads in this province are as safe as possible for the people driving them every day. Thank you.
Now ask that to every single MLA, what would happen if they lost someone in a car accident, if they lost a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a family member, what it would do to their lives. And now imagine that happening every 2 years to a school and what effect it would have on people. I want them to take into consideration the effects that putting something off and saying something is coming in so many years that can wait for the change. No, it can't, because in so many years, so many more people can die, and then they'll sit there and they can say that, well, the fix is coming. It doesn't need attention when it does.
We need to stand up to the bullying that we're getting from our government.
Construction of the Regina Bypass has begun, but questions surrounding the project still remain. Is a south route truly the best option? Has the government been completely honest with the public? Who influenced the route selection?
We didn't choose it for them. It's their project, they funded, and they make the final decision.
We knew we couldn't stop it.
And if we find out we weren't doing it right, well, that'll be years from now.
At least in Crimea, when the Russians came in and took it over, you could defend yourself.
With government transparency up for debate, we will investigate the reasoning behind the south route, the validity of a north alternative, and the reason why so many of our questions remain unanswered.
Well, that's what you're doing here. You're bulldozing through our life.
Activist group Y Tower Road has been a loud voice against the bypass project. The group is led by Nestor Mryglod, owner of Super Seamless of Canada. Before the project was announced, Mryglod was going to use his land along Highway 1 to expand his business. With both land and opportunity lost, he now fights for justice.
We're living proof that if you stand up to the government, they come bulldozing through your life. And the story needs to be told. And we'll tell the story.
Featuring 12 overpasses and 32 bridges, the Regina Bypass will cover nearly 60 kilometers of road and cost $1.88 billion. Beginning at Balgony, it will head west on Highway number 1, turning south just east of Tower Road. It will cross Highway 33 and head back to Highway 1 before linking to the Global Transportation Hub and continuing north to Highway 11. Y Tower Road has drawn up a north alternative in response to the government's south route.
It'd be $1 billion, and that would include putting overpasses at White City and Pilot Butte and Balgony. But
how did you price that out?
We use questions have been asked in the committee meetings. How much does it cost per kilometer to build a highway? There were signs up at Estevan how many miles of highways were being built at such a price. So we use those figures. An overpass is anywhere from $40 to $60 million. So it was quite easy to figure it out. And then we added probably another 30% or so.
Y Tower Road's proposed north route would start at Balgony and follow Highway 46. It will continue north to Highway 6 and Highway 11 before heading south. It will then link up to the Global Transportation Hub and finally reach Highway number 1.
We didn't have engineers working on it. We had people that are in the know, that have qualifications, and we use the government's own information.
The Ministry of Highways refused to comment on their decision to go south. However, we spoke with Rod Benroth, Director of Public Works and Infrastructure for the RM of Sherwood. In 1993, he worked on a government study that measured traffic patterns around Regina. This was one of the earliest studies considered in the bypass project.
I think at that time the conclusion was that the amount of traffic that was coming in from Highway 1 was extreme. Like it was over the capacity of what was there right now for the road structure. To bypass the city, that was the most economical route at the time. Yeah, in 1993, we never considered the north route.
The RM of Sherwood and other stakeholders were asked to weigh in on several variations of a south route. The RM preferred that the bypass utilize Tower Road since they had just repaved it. However, it was decided that the bypass would run 400 meters east alongside Tower Road.
The opposition we had is that it would, by moving the bypass further out or moving it out into there would actually just maybe lead to more annexation by the city because it's almost like a boundary, right? You've created a boundary by creating a bypass.
The land around Tower Road is controversial for more than one reason. Opposition alleges that deals have been struck and landowners in the area have influenced the preferred route.
This isn't rocket science. When you look at who owns property, if you have the power and the control of being an elite developer or in government, you basically do what you want.
Similar allegations have been made against the city, as they have a vested stake in alleviating traffic. We spoke with Regina's mayor, Michael Fougere, about their involvement with the route selection.
Our perspective as a city council, we want the project to go ahead. Doesn't matter where it is, just build it because it answers a lot of traffic questions, congestion issues, and safety issues in southern Saskatchewan. So we're very much in favor of it. This is a provincial project. They sought our advice. We have said on a number of occasions, probably 2 or 3 motions from council, just build the bypass. Without knowing where it was, just build the bypass. Province determine the best place. Go ahead and build it. The sooner you build it, the better.
Even though construction of the bypass is underway, Mryglod and the rest of Y Tower Road have not given up their fight. Mryglod is asking the government for a public inquiry into the bypass, with the hope that alleged wrongdoings will be exposed.
It's not right that the government does this to people. I'm sorry. So that's what drives me. In my life, I've had to fight for everything. And it's a matter of right or wrong. And this is wrong. It's terribly wrong. They're trying to hide it under the carpet. You know, we've put a lot of time into it, and my brother is running against Christine Tell, simply to inform the public and to get some accountability and transparency in our government.
This lack of transparency may be caused by the project's P3 model. In a public-private partnership, companies are hired to design, build, and maintain the project. The theory is that they'll make improvements to their plans since they're responsible for maintaining it. Bill Bonner, University of Regina business professor, is skeptical of these benefits.
The whole rationale for the project is that the value for money is better under the private sector option, the P3 option, than it is under the traditional build. But when you get right down to it, the reason that they're different is almost always because they've added a whole risk element.
The Value for Money report, commissioned by Sask Builds, estimates the cost of risks associated with the project. According to this report, the province will save $380 million by using a P3 model. The biggest factor that makes the P3 cheaper is that its risk element is $400 million less than a traditional build.
All you ever get to see in the public is this lump sum. In the case of the highway project, it's $476 million of risk was created out of thin air and then attached to the public cost. Up until that point, the public cost was cheaper than the private cost. And that's almost always the case. On a pure cost of construction, it's cheaper for the public than it is for the private. We have an infrastructure deficit in this country. We have more infrastructure projects than we have money to spend on. We just do. And this is a way of the public only putting out some of its money now. The private sector putting out some of its money now. We pay them back over time. So we get to work with more money than we've got right now. But that's a scary argument because you're mortgaging the future. This is public money. I don't see how. And this is what the adaptation seems to be required. We have to change democracy to fit the private sector model. It doesn't work. And if that's the cost, I think it's too high. Forget all this other stuff. If secrecy around public money is the cost, it's just too high.
Conflicting land values around the global transportation hub dominated the news, and now the same problem is surfacing along the Regina Bypass route. We'll show you why some landowners are feeling optimistic and others let down by the government.
They did the same thing to me over that intermodal. I had a quarter of land over there, that intermodal. And they sent a fellow out here, a land appraiser. And he says, I got somebody interested in your land over there for the intermodal.
It is easy money to wager that we are going to get a steady diet of the Regina Bypass land deal.
One of the most contentious issues surrounding the bypass project is the land.
We have a GTH land scandal that's under investigation. If your government and the Premier can't trust Saskatchewan people with the facts, How can Saskatchewan people trust him to lead the province?
Bypass, it cuts through the city, and so the big questions around land deals, and some really sketchy land deals that you personally signed off on.
James's land has been expropriated 3 separate times. First along the global transportation hub, then where his home is currently in Regina's southeast end, and now along the bypass on highway number 33, where he plans on moving his home.
The expropriations is the same as what they've done over there, and I know full well now that this is going to go to court, because I wrote them a letter, and then they sent me a check already for $20,000 an acre they want to give me for that over there, and land is selling for $100,000. So they're trying to steal the land, the same thing as what they did over there to me in Intermodal.
Gertrude Frank's land along the south portion of the bypass on highway number 6 was expropriated in 2014. She requested that her son Harry tell the story for her, so we met up with him at his home a few kilometers down from Gertrude's property.
We couldn't get any direct answers from the government, and that was the major problem of it. Anybody you called, they would send out the construction guys to answer questions, and all they would say is, "Oh, I don't know. I don't have that authority." They appraised it, and they offered us, because it was agricultural land, $5,700 an acre.
Harry was offered double the price of what his first appraisal was for a parcel of land that ran through his property.
A road, nowhere. A little strip of land through our land is owned by the city of Regina. So between the highway and that was a little section of our land. And then they turned around and offered us $11,000 per acre for that land. Okay, how can it almost like double in price just because it's, that's already expropriated?
Well, like I said, developers pay anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000, and the government has offered me $20,000. So, what a disaster! I can't replace this property. It's impossible for $20,000. This close to the city. How can I replace it when land is going for $100,000 and the government's only giving me $20,000? And I'm not the only farmer that's got the same problem. Don't forget, I've lived here since 1972. This is home. So I was willing to move my house over there, and then they don't even want to give me access. I had to fight for that. So I don't know. I don't think these people know what the hell they're doing. And they're not listening to the people. People should know what this government is doing here. He's disrupting everybody's life. Could care less. They've never had, sure they had open meetings for all the owners, but they never listened to anything.
And here we're going to have highway frontage on 2 sides, and our land isn't worth anything. It was the discrepancies in the land prices.
To get a better idea of how land values are assessed, we spoke with Robin Johnson from Crown Appraisals. He's worked on expropriated appraisals for the Ministry of Highways.
The appraising property is not an exact science. There are many variables, and each appraiser has their own, I guess, their own opinion of value, and they would put more weight on some factors more than others. And that's why you'll see 2 appraisers being used as expert witnesses in court, because they're appraising the same property, but they have 2 separate values.
Kevin Tell, CEO of Cindercrete Products, has owned land on Highway 1 since the 1990s. His sister is Christine Tell, MLA of Regina Wascana Plains, the constituency where his land is. He wasn't expropriated, but he's also had to work around plans for the bypass.
We tried to maximize our developable property, and they understood that, and we ultimately we came to an agreement, and I think that we're happy. Highways is happy. We are in the value-added real estate business. We thought it was a good, potentially a good real estate play. It gives us a little more potential not so much clout, but just a little bit more skin in the game when we're dealing with the RM on developing our this property and now ultimately that property.
The thing was, we had submitted proposals for years to try and be able to develop our land, and we were always shot down by the provincial government. They said, nope, nope, nope. But the government said there's no more switching of land, like from agriculture to commercial or anything like that. And he said they're going to let us know in 6 months. Well, about 8 to 12 months later, we found out that's because there's a highway coming through. Like I said, we're not in the way of progress. We're not sorry we lost the land. It's just that we didn't get a fair market value, and that's what's really making us angry.
Look at similar parcels of land that are sold and come up with our value. Once the bypass is built, once it's announced and built, it will have an impact on land values because speculators are probably in buying land and trying to make a profit as development progresses once the bypass is completed. Good appraisers should not be more than 10% apart in their values most of the time, because we all look at the same factors that affect land values, and a good appraiser should take all of those into consideration.
We got 5,700 for agricultural land. On the east end, people have gotten over $100,000 for agricultural land. Okay, if it's agricultural land, it's agricultural land. And then they say, well, it's the approximation to the city and things like that. Well, we're fairly close to the city. We have highway frontage. Shouldn't our land be worth a little bit more too?
We recognize that we should be part of the solution. It was only to our benefit to see this process actually, step through and actually work itself out. All the hype about that it wasn't far enough further east and all these different things, and really what a lot of people didn't quite understand is that the beside Tower Road, still west of the railroad tracks, was really one of the only options they had.
Things that could have been done with the bypass, why put it out this far, and then on the east end go right against the city? Well, that's not a bypass anymore. It's a ring road.
"16 landowners have had to move from their property that was expropriated to make way for the Regina Bypass, a project that has caused quite the controversy over the last 2 years. When land is needed for public use, expropriation leaves few options, and for one homeowner, the loss is more than just money. The place he called home for more than 30 years has been demolished, and starting over is making his life harder than ever.
I'm just really sad about the whole system, like the way it's set up. It's just not right. Who am I to say? I'm just a little guy here.
Bruce Bolingbroke is one of 16 people whose land was expropriated. After buying property situated where construction has already started for the bypass just east of Regina in 1983, there was no way of knowing what the future had in store.
Well, I feel, I'm basically losing everything. They won't compensate me properly for my house and that, so basically I've got to really scale my life down here. It was a really nice house and very comfortable and everything, and now I'm in a trailer. So, I got nothing wrong with the trailer. The trailer's really nice, but it's just not the same. And everything. Now I got to drive every day twice a day to feed my horses and look after my animals and stuff. So it's basically turned my life upside down. I'm trying to set up a new farm, but without financial compensation, proper financial, I can't do it. The costs are just too high. So, but I'm trying.
To understand more about expropriation, we spoke to Patricia Farnese, property lawyer and associate professor of law at the University of Saskatchewan.
You really hold the land for as long as the Queen wants you to have it. And in this case now it's the province or the city representing the province. So if there's a valid public purpose, your land can be taken. So it's a really broad term, but usually we look at things like health and safety, public, provision of goods and services to the public, also some economic activity for the development and growth of urban areas, rural municipalities, those sorts of services.
So what kind of chance does a property owner have then at being successful at challenging the expropriation when we're looking at expansion of an urban center?
Very little. Because, and this is what people don't understand about property. We inherited our property system from the old feudal times, and if you look at the grant that you get, your title to the land, it does say you get it by right of the crown. And so that underlying title that the crown has really means that you've been given it until the crown needs it back. And so it is a right of the crown to come and ask for the land back.
As you can see, the land behind me is in full construction. What was once a desired place to build a home and a business is now nothing more than piles of dirt to make way for the Regina Bypass. The expropriation process has turned Bruce's life upside down.
This is my life. I love the horses and I run a business out of here too, and that's I've got to move the shop where the business is out of. Basically, I got to move that too. So it affects every the three things in my life: the horse business, the construction business, and my personal life. So, and there's no compensation. So it's I don't feel very good. Yeah, it's like depression really. Everything is down. Like pretty happy-go-lucky guy in most cases, but this is it's just bad. It's just the whole scenario. I thought it would be a good thing when they came, because my horses and my animals and everything, they don't need to be close to a major highway in Saskatchewan. With 28,000 cars going by a day. But it turned out to be just a black hole. Like it's just bad.
The bypass is set for completion in 2019, but its future impact is unknown. How the project will affect traffic safety won't be determined until then. We will have to wait even longer to see if the P3 funding model produces the savings claimed. However, we may never know whether an alternative route was truly possible or whether all landowners were properly compensated. What is clear is that the controversy surrounding this project will not be going away anytime soon.